Hey travelers, welcome to Beyond OP in the Fantasyverse, the ultimate realm where overpowered heroes, dark magic, and wild Isekai adventures come to life. If you're into epic fantasy stories, morally gray choices, world-breaking powers, and a dash of chaos, you're exactly where you need to be. New worlds drop often, so grab your gear and prepare to get isekai'd.
I was born without a house, so I'll forge my own throne. Episode 1. Born of Blood and Silence. The wind howled through the ribcage of a dead god. Above the jagged spires of Velgrin Academy, lightning stitched the sky like broken veins, illuminating the fortress built into a massive fossilized carcass. Black towers rose from ancient bones, each etched with glowing runes that pulsed with restrained sorcery. The air smelled of ozone, blood, and old secrets. Today was the Age of Anointment, the awakening, and Kael stood alone in the courtyard. Kael of No-House. That was what the instructors called him. No sigil, no crest, no sacred blood. Just a name spoken with disdain and an origin wrapped in temple whispers and night terrors. The other students around him, heirs of mage-kings, beastkin warriors, silver-eyed demonspawn, stood adorned in ceremonial gear, surrounded by spectral auras or glowing tattoos. Kael wore a plain gray tunic, sleeveless and threadbare. His hands were scarred, his knuckles calloused, and a brand shaped like a shattered ring marred the center of his chest. At 18, he was lean but hard, like a knife honed too long. His only possession of value was his silence. He felt eyes on him, sneers from the elite, snickers from the hollow wing orphans. He had no house, no pact mark, no known affinity, but he was still here, waiting. The Arch of Awakening stood in front of him, a titanic crescent of obsidian carved from the heart of the first fallen moon. At its center, a single lidless black eye hung suspended in air, an artifact older than recorded history. It pulsed once, twice, then wept. Thick, tar-like ichor oozed from the Eye of Awakening, pouring in slow rivulets. Screams echoed across the yard, not from pain, but power. Students were writhing, convulsing, as spirits chose their hosts or ancient spells grafted themselves into flesh. One girl howled as dragonfire veins bloomed beneath her skin. A beastkin boy split into shadow before reforming with horns. Kael fell to his knees. There was no fire, no light, just cold, a clawing void sinking into his bones like iron. He felt something snap in his spine, and the world around him dimmed. He heard no gods, no spirit, only a whisper, a voice that seemed older than sound itself. You have been bound. Primordial system, Wrought path. Installed. Main trait. Acquired. Ashen forge. All growth is earned. No gifts. Every kill is tribute. Every loss, currency. Loot mechanic, unlocked. Crafting tree, unlocked. Subtrait, unbound soul. You may learn abilities from slain foes if consumed via rite of echo. Kael gasped as the words etched themselves into his thoughts. Runic, sacred, alive. The whisper returned, now colder, hungrier. The world has offered you nothing. Now take everything. That night, Kael sat in his cell-like room in the hollow wing. The stone walls were damp. The mattress, if it could be called that, was half mildewed straw. But none of that mattered now. In his hand, something pulsed. A coin-shaped shard, blacker than pitch and faintly warm. Item acquired. Fragment of the outer gate, uncommon. Type, key component description, a splinter of the boundary between worlds. Used in high-grade crafting rituals or as a gateway currency. Bound to Wrought path users only. He stared at it, breath shallow. He had no idea how to use it. No forge, no blueprints, no allies. But he knew what this meant. The world had noticed him. 3 days later, during the mandatory combat pairing trials, Kael found himself face to face with Sereth, the silver-eyed lieutenant of Leora Vey, heiress to the House of Blightglass. Leora stood at the edge of the courtyard, regal and cruel. Her entourage whispered, not hiding their amusement. Sereth's smile was dagger-thin. His twin arc blades hissed with flame, crafted in the infernal forges of Ifrit's bastion. "Try not to bleed on my boots," he said. Kael said nothing. He took no stance. He had no weapon. The moment the whistle blew, Sereth surged forward, blades a blur of burning steel. A slash came for Kael's throat. But Kael moved. Passive triggered. Ashen Will, Tier 0. Effect: while unarmed and unarmored, gain adaptive resilience and combat insight. Fighting style: analyzed, 40%. Weak point: detected. Sereth's left feint drags by 0.6 seconds. Kael ducked under the second strike, stepped inside the arc of flame, and drove his elbow into Sereth's solar plexus. The breath whooshed from the half-djinn. Then Kael pivoted, swept his legs, and smashed him into the ground with a savage shoulder drop. The courtyard fell silent. Sereth twitched on the stones, unconscious. Kael bent down and picked up a broken blade. Item acquired: Djinn-forged arc blade damaged. Effect: unusable until repaired. Crafting option: fuse with fragment of the outer gate? Yes or no? He didn't hesitate. Yes? Crafting successful. Item created: Emberfang, rare. Type: adaptive weapon. Bonded. Description: a hybrid blade forged from outer gate essence and flame-tempered arc steel. Responds to user's kill count and can shift form between dagger, saber, or whip blade based on willpower. Current form: dagger passive, kindle edge. Each kill adds 1 stack of burning memory. At 5 stacks, unleash ash surge. Kael stared at the weapon now resting in his palm. The blade shimmered red hot, humming softly. Not just a weapon. A beginning. Episode 2. When Nobles Play with Fire. The Invitation. 3 days after Kael shattered Sereth Vey's pride on the dueling grounds, a knock sounded at his chamber door. 3 sharp raps against iron. No one knocked on hollowing doors. He rose, expecting trouble, but found only a sealed envelope tacked to the frame with a thin ritual pin made of white bone. Vellum, waxed black with the sigil of House Vey, a flame devouring a crowned skull. Kael turned it in his fingers, wary. The envelope was too clean, too carefully placed, too polite. He broke the seal with a flick of his thumb and read the contents inside. You are cordially invited to the Eve of Cinder's banquet, held within the Hall of Painted Knives. Attendance is expected of all anointed worthy of note. Dress accordingly. There was no signature, only a second note scrawled at the bottom in unfamiliar ink. Don't drink the red wine. Kael stood for a long while with the invitation in hand, staring out across the dead courtyard. The sky above Velgrin was a perpetual bruise, thick clouds backlit by crimson lightning. House Vey didn't invite people like him. They summoned prey. Still, he folded the invitation and tucked it inside his belt. If they wanted a pawn, they'd chosen poorly. The Hall of Painted Knives was older than the Academy itself. Its name was no metaphor. The walls were a mosaic of actual blades, each embedded with surgical precision, each once belonging to a duelist who died before yielding. The nobles called it art. Kael called it warning. He entered from the servant's path, a side door, a statement. He'd worn nothing special, just his dark tunic and the newly bound Emberfang, now disguised as a curved, short dagger strapped along his back. He walked in like he belonged there. That alone drew stares. The hall was full of house heirs and power signs wrapped in glamour and silk, their auras polished like forged silver. Their laughter sounded rehearsed. Their eyes didn't. He felt them cut into him, measuring, judging, waiting for the punchline of some cruel joke. And then she arrived. Leora Vey, crowned in coils of braided flame and venomous poise. No mask, she didn't need one. Her confidence was a weapon honed by legacy and blood. She approached with slow, deliberate steps, parting the crowd like a blade through fog. When she reached him, her smile was soft and surgical. "You wore that?" she said, voice lilting. Kael didn't flinch. "Didn't know if you were feeding me or gutting me." Leora laughed, low and real. "Why not both?" She gestured to a long table adorned with ghost fruit, storm-roasted beast cuts, and wine that shimmered faintly with embedded glyphs. 2 goblets of red had already been poured. Kael didn't touch his. Leora sat across from him, lounging with the relaxed menace of a predator that knows it owns the room. "Everyone wants to know the same thing, you know," she said. "How a no-name stray shattered one of my blades like he was made for it." Kael met her eyes. He telegraphed, "You trained him to be fast, not smart." Leora's smile faded. "You think I came here for flattery?" Kael asked. "No," she said and leaned forward. "You came because you're new, raw, and because no one warned you how deep the knives sink here." Kael reached for the goblet, then paused. "I don't drink red," he said, and slid the glass toward her. Her smile returned, but this one didn't reach her eyes. The room warped, not physically, but in the way senses lie when something steps outside natural law. A shadow moved where none should have, long and flickering, cast by no candle nor mage light. Kael turned, too fast. No one else in the room noticed. Not even Leora. Only him. A tall figure emerged from behind the painted knives, robe stitched with bones, face obscured by a veil of burning ash. A voice spoke directly into Kael's mind. "You don't belong to them. You belong to the Forge." Kael's breath caught. "Midnight, Forgotten Wing, bring blood." Then the figure was gone. The room returned to normal. The laughter resumed. Wine was poured. And Kael, for the first time since his awakening, felt cold. Velgrin had wings that no longer appeared on maps. Sealed corridors from wars no one remembered. The Forgotten Wing was one such place. Its entrance was a rusted iron door embedded in the underbelly of the academy. Wards hummed faintly over it, meant to keep ghosts in or fools out. Kael stepped through anyway. Inside, dust danced like dying fireflies. Broken statues lined the corridor, each holding half-sundered blades and scrolls that whispered as he passed. At the end stood a figure waiting beside a stone altar. No veil now. Rook. His skin was pale and cracked like ceramic. One eye burned like a dying star. His presence felt thin, like it was borrowing shape from the world around him. "You came," Rook said. "You said blood," Kael replied. "I brought mine." Rook smiled. "Not yours." He gestured to a basin beside him. A body lay chained inside, bloody, beaten, breathing shallow. Sereth, alive, barely. "House Vey threw him away," Rook said. "He lost. He shamed their bloodline. His punishment was slow death in silence." Kael approached the altar slowly, Emberfang warm against his back. "This is your choice. The system demands proof. A true right. You are wrought. You do not earn gifts. You forge them." Kael stood over the boy who tried to kill him with 2 enchanted blades and a noble's arrogance. And he thought, this is not mercy. He picked up the ritual knife. Sereth opened one swollen eye, confused, and Kael drove the blade into his heart. No words, no hesitation, just necessity. Target consumed. Ability acquired. Flame Weft Step, Tier 1. Echo Memory, unlocked, 1 out of 10. Access to Forge Tree, granted. The basin glowed red. Kael felt heat rush into him, not warmth, but remembered fire. His veins surged with Sareth's final motion, the last flicker of his flame. He saw flashes of the Vey training halls, of screams, of blades cutting through air again and again until the muscles remembered what the mind could not. He fell to one knee, and then it was over. When he stood, the book in Rook's hands had ignited, each page burning open without being consumed. You have obtained Tome of the Forge-bound, Volume Larstern, Path of Ash and Echo unlocked. Rook offered it silently. Kael took it. Episode 3. The Blade That Remembers. The forge sleeps lightly. The Hollow Wings forge chamber wasn't meant to be used. It was little more than a half-buried furnace with a warped stone bench and rusted ventilation grates that breathed like dying lungs. The ceiling dripped occasionally from ancient iron seams. The stink of old blood and ash clung to everything. Kael lit the fire himself, not with flint or spell, with intent. The Tome of the Forge-bound hovered beside him, its aged pages fanned open midair, a low ember light pulsing from its runes. Beneath it lay Emberfang, his dagger, not yet forged anew, but no longer just a weapon. It twitched faintly, like it dreamed. Kael's bare hand hovered above the blade, heat licking at his skin. The cut on his palm from the right had begun to scar, but the flesh tingled with each breath near Emberfang. The system had spoken. Shape the echo. Choose your path. Kael studied the options, ashblade techniques, movements honed from stolen memory, the ability to kill with grace, to turn loss into rhythm. Forge-bound craft, creation, the power to fold meaning and memory into weapons that could rewrite death. Ritual implements, strange tools, charms, bindings, curses, trinkets that turned corpses into allies and air into traps. All potent, but one called to him. Ashblade, the path of the fighter who refuses to die because he's too full of ghosts. Chosen, Ashblade techniques. Ability unlocked. Sear point, Tier 1. Kael's vision dimmed as the description etched itself behind his eyes. Imbue your weapon with a sigil of delayed flame. Detonates on strike in a cone of scorched air. Cooldown. Moderate. Flame affinity increases on kill. He gasped as the ember mark flared across Emberfang's edge. The blade pulsed, like something stirring, like memory warming in bone. Kael closed his hand around the hilt. It burned. But this time, he didn't let go. He noticed the silence before the whispers. The academy was never still. Always alive with magical tension, spells buzzing in the stones, students training, nobles laughing too loud. But this morning, the quiet had teeth. A visitor had arrived. No fanfare, no banners. Just a dark carriage with frost-forged wheels and no crest. They said a new instructor had come from the Far East, one of the unrecorded orders, spoken of only in failed invasion histories and censored grimoires. They called him Ghostblade, and he asked for Kael by name, not in public, not in class. A folded note appeared in Kael's room. A single line. Come dressed for steel. The meeting place was not a classroom. It was the old courtyard, buried beneath the eye tower, surrounded by dead trees and statues that no longer resembled any one human. Ghostblade waited beneath an iron-barked tree that wept rust. His mask was white porcelain, smooth but for a single crack that ran beneath his left eye like a tear turned violent. Kael approached, wary. He bowed, shallow, cautious. Ghostblade didn't return the gesture. Remove your tunic. Kael tensed. Why? The instructor tilted his head. Because I know what sleeps beneath it. Kael hesitated, then peeled away the fabric, exposing his chest. The brand was still there. A warped, broken symbol scorched into his flesh since the day he'd been found half dead near the old gate. It looked like a sigil, but none that matched any known magic, house, or religion. Ghostblade stepped closer. "That's no mere brand," he said softly. "That is a memory, severed from the other side." Kael didn't move. The air between them was suddenly thick with pressure, like the silence before a scream. "I came here for one purpose," Ghostblade said, "to test the ones with cursed fire. You are not from here." Kael's jaw clenched. "I'm from nowhere." "Good," Ghostblade said, and drew his weapon. The blade Ghostblade wielded was like nothing Kael had seen before. Shards of white bone and glass, bound with thin crimson threads that hummed with something ancient. Kael unsheathed Emberfang. The air tensed. Trial initiated. Survive 3 minutes or land a hit. No one called the rules. No crowd, no referee. Just steel. Kael dashed left, activating Flame-Weft Step, vanishing into a blur of heated motion. Emberfang struck at Ghostblade's side. Deflected. Effortlessly. A ripple of impact knocked Kael backward. He rolled, came up bleeding, but smiling. The blade remembered. Sear point flared to life, runic heat coiling up the dagger like molten veins. Kael baited, feinted, then struck. The moment Emberfang landed on Ghostblade's cloak, boom! A shockwave of heat roared outward. The flame exploded in a fan, catching the instructor's edge, burning away part of his outer sleeve. The mask cracked further. Kael coughed, staggered. The world slowed. Passive unlocked. Echo reflex. Your body reacts from consumed memory. Parrying charges counterattack potential. Ghostblade stopped. "You scratched me." "I burned you?" "Same thing," the masked man said, and for the first time, his voice softened. "You'll need sharper fire than that." But he stepped back. "You're no longer hollow." And just like that, he vanished. Back in his room, Kael lit the forge once more. He laid Emberfang beside a blank mold, a new one. Raw iron, old wood, bone dust, and a drop of his own blood. The tome floated beside him. Path progressed. Echo capacity increased. Next step, forge your blade of memory. Note, this weapon will inherit properties of what you remember, or what you steal. Kael stared at the mold. He thought of Sareth's scream, of Ghostblade's mask, of the cracked gate in his dreams, of a world behind a door no one else could see. He closed his eyes, and the forge began to burn, not with coal, but with memory. Behind him, unseen, the system flickered. Observer detected, unknown. Soul thread conflict, dormant, awaiting ignition.
If you enjoyed the journey, smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss a twist in the fantasyverse. Got a theory, idea, or just want to geek out? Drop a comment below. I'm always reading.